Salut tout le monde. Hey everybody. Welcome to Game Over. Actually, I'm going to double check to make sure that everything's working well on my stream. Everyone knows I traditionally struggle when it comes to getting the streams to work. So hopefully, without Robert here tonight to help me out, you guys can see me and you guys can hear me. Salut tout le monde. I do really appreciate everyone being here after this late game. We're going to keep it tight tonight. Oh, look at that. Oh, hey, I can see myself on the stream. So we're going to go ahead and welcome our friend Matt Drake to the show. How's it going, Matt?
Terrific. I would have liked them to end that one a little bit earlier so I could get to bed, but what are you going to do?
You know, you're looking a little bit like, maybe not. I was going to say you're kind of looking like Xhekaj a little bit, but he's keeping it tighter in the back. He's cleaning it up.
Yeah, he's keeping it a little bit tighter. Yeah, my salad's flowing pretty hard right now. So, um,
All right, so thank you to everyone that's here. Hey, yeah, everything looks great on my end. Well, you can see my face, Kate. How's it going? By the way, we're going to talk about Kaden Guhle tonight because he's emerging as the number one defenseman we all thought he could be. You know, last year the numbers weren't great, but no offense. Hey, I'm going to try not to throw any strays at Savard because Andrew's not here. But last year, Guhle's numbers weren't amazing. This year, they're looking fantastic, and that is great news. Let me know where you're watching from as well, because I appreciate all of you taking time out of your precious day. We have a Rangers fan here, so maybe he's upper state New York, where you can get some delicious garbage plates from Rochester. Let me know where you're from. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about these plucky Habs. I think that Kaden Swedgen mentions as well Justin Barron. We're going to talk about him. He's looked fantastic. But I wanted to kind of get everyone's impression on the pluckiness of the Habs, because they're coming into these games that stylistically, maybe talent-wise, they shouldn't be in, but I thought they did great against the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. In fact, that first line was quite dominant, and they deserve that goal. So anyhow, it was a fun game, and we got Matt here, my old colleague from Habs Eyes and the Prize. Before we get going, like the stream, subscribe, do all the stuff that we always beg you to do, and get your questions ready for the third segment. So what was the big thing that stood out for you tonight in the match, Matt?
I think it was that first line. Man, they were dominant. They had huge swaths of time where they were hemming the Golden Knights into their own zone, particularly in the third period there. They came so close to getting one on the power play. They were getting chance after chance after chance. And after that second power play didn't go and they didn't get a goal, it was kind of like it almost seemed like it could have taken the wind out of their sails completely. But then they go out there on their very next shift and create a goal. And it was weird to see Rafael Harvey-Pinard in Cole Caulfield's spot making that play over to Nick Suzuki on the back door. But it works, man. And I've been yelling about this all season. Is like, when things aren't going, like, try something different. And they did that. They put Caulfield up at the point, and I think that threw the Vegas Golden Knights completely off. They weren't sure where the shot was supposed to be coming from, and he sends it down to Harvey-Pinard and then over to Nick Suzuki, and it ends up working. So they worked hard for that goal, and they were working hard that whole period, and really that whole game they were fantastic. So that really jumped off the page of the score sheet there. As little as they actually put the puck into the net, puck rolls a little bit differently for them. They could have had 2-3 goals in that game, no problem.
Yeah, Rafael Harvey-Pinard actually came very close to scoring earlier in the game.
Yeah.
I think he was on the line with Jake Evans at that point. But I'm just happy that they scored a goal, because we're starting to get the criticism. People are saying, it's not working out. It's not working out. Well, that line actually, other than Kirby Dach, Rafael Harvey-Pinard continues to have the best results there, statistically. Like, they're not getting dominated. They're outshooting their opponents. They're out-chancing their opponents. So I'm glad to see Harvey-Pinard get a little bit of luck go his way. That, I think, is very important. But also, it's great to see Nick Suzuki get off the schneid a little bit. What did you think about the criticism about Nick Suzuki to start the season? Because before we get to your answer, I think there was a little bit that was warranted. Just a little bit. But as per usual, it was disproportionate.
It's Habs fans, right?
It's just Habs fans.
Montreal hockey. You're never gonna get completely measured criticism. It's always gonna go overboard at some point. I think for sure some of it was warranted. He didn't have the best start to the season,
no,
but we're seeing him start to pick it up now, and he's kind of proving that maybe you don't want to jump the gun and start really dogpiling on a guy that early in the season. Give him some time. to acclimate. Give him some time to considering the fact that he's got multiple, like a rotating cast of the on the other side of his wing there. He seems to not know from night to night who's actually going to be there. Is it going to be Josh Anderson? Is it going to be Rafael Harvey-Pinard? Is it going to be who knows? Sean Monahan. They could throw anybody on there. They haven't really figured out who works best. I agree with you. I think RHP has been he's been the best of anybody they've tried there so far this season.
Mhm.
I still have my guy that I'd like to see them try there at some point, but he's currently playing in Laval, so he's not available.
Oh,
But
you're talking about le sniper Beauceron.
I am talking about Les Sniper Beauceron.
We're gonna fight about that because
I
I think Joshua is where he needs to be right now. But we'll talk about that later.
well, yeah, we can talk about that afterwards. I think overall, I think what Nick Suzuki is showing is, patience, right? We don't need to jump on a guy that early in the season if he's not producing. It's going to come. You look at Cole Caulfield right now. How many opportunities is he getting every single game? And he's got what, 3 goals in the year so far?
Well, I think that was his second.
Does
right?
he have 4?
I think that was just his second.
No, that was Suzuki's. That was Suzuki's 4th. Caulfield either has 3 or 4.
Oh.
Either way, my point is, like, the opportunities are there for him. They're just not. They're not cashing in on them. And as long as they keep generating those opportunities, eventually the puck's going to start rolling right for them.
Yep.
And they're going to start scoring a lot more. And you're seeing that now with Nick Suzuki. I think you're going to continue seeing that as long as he's playing the way that he is.
We got a great comment here from Canty Canadian saying, if I had a nickel for every time a Vegas goalie gave the Habs a free goal, he'd have 2 nickels, but that's not a lot. But it's kind of weird that it's happened twice. So we're having the Aiden Hill tonight. I like the fact that it happened to Sean Monahan because, yeah, sure, it was the easiest goal of his career. But Sean Monahan, and this is not taking away from the top line, Sean Monahan has been the Montreal Canadiens' best player by a country mile. And it's so fun to say. This is crazy stat: 5 goals, 0 at 5-on-5. But it's not because he's playing poorly. He has 2 shorthanded goals, 3 power play goals. The question becomes, do you keep Sean Monahan? Because the idea was always you trade him. But we're seeing a guy who, everyone keeps saying, oh, he's old and injured. Hey, he just turned 29, like 2 weeks ago. If he's old, I'm Methuselah. And he brings something to the game that Kirby Dach brought, which is being great in transition, right? Like, that's so important for the Montreal Canadiens. So has he moved the needle for you? Or is it just more now the Habs can get a better result at the trade deadline for a trade for Sean Monahan?
It's hard to say, man. I mean, with the way he's playing, the argument for re-signing him at the end of the season is I can see it.
Right?
I think there's a path for that to happen, especially if the Habs finish the season closer to the playoffs than they are to the bottom 5. I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but the way they're playing right now, they look like a team that could potentially be challenging, like maybe a bubble team. And if that happens, it's going to be hard for them to justify trading bodies away if they're in the race when the deadline comes around. So then that might make them have to make a tough decision. They say, well, we got to keep this guy because there's no shot that you're going to get anywhere close to there without him, the way that he's playing right now, the way that he's anchoring that quote unquote third line. That's really the second line right now at this point. He's an incredibly important player for the success of this team. So if they're anywhere near a playoff spot, I could see the argument for not trading him. However, look at his totals right now. If he continues this production, the type of return that you could get at the deadline, given what his salary is, contenders would throw a lot at you to get that on their squad.
He can do so much too, right? Like, it's not just like defensively, offensively. He's a complete player. Yeah,
and the amount that you could get in return for him, again, given his salary, by the time the deadline rolls around, he costs nothing, right? You could easily get multiple picks out of that. You've already gotten a first round pick just for taking on that contract.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's going to be really hard for Kent Hughes not to take that. So I think the only way he sticks around is if they're really in the thick of it come deadline time. Then he might be forced to keep him. But other than that, if it's a long shot, if they got a big uphill battle to get in the playoffs, now take the money and run.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you with that one. And it always reminds me of, there was at one point the Habs were fighting. They were right there at a playoff spot. I think they were maybe 2 points out, and they decided to trade a defenseman who wore number 26, I believe, Josh Georges. They decided to trade a defenseman who wears number 52, Craig Rivet, to the San Jose Sharks while they're in a playoff race. And they ended up getting, obviously, Josh Georges and then a guy called Max Pacioretty, and Max Pacioretty turned into Nick Suzuki, right? So I know it's always, this is just circumstantial, that one trade, but I'm big time on the whole take the money and run. You know what I mean? That's like, there's, at this point with the Habs, they're not quite there yet. If you can get another first round pick, you're probably laughing. All right, so we have we got Danielle is in Moncton. That's not too far from you, right?
No, not at all. It's about an
We
hour down the road.
Hour down the road. Oh, we got Sandus is in Latvia right now. Nice. Okay, we got some people in Brooklyn. We got some people out west and Vancouver, Fraser Valley. Okay, yeah. Well, that's the great part about these late games. It for other people, it's just normal games. So we have it so good, right? So now actually we have people. Maybe they're waking up in Europe and they're getting to catch a game. So that is fun. And someone wants the Habs to trade Xhekaj to the Rangers for very little. We're on to you. We know exactly what you're trying to do there. Let's talk about Arber Xhekaj. He's turned into a very valuable player. There's a timing issue though with him, right? Like I feel like he has two things that really hold him back. Taking those penalties at the end of periods. We know that Arber Xhekaj is going to get called really, really harshly by the refs. Like it's shitty, but he has like a reputation of like a Matt Cook type guy. When he's not dirty, he's just stronger than everyone else in the league. And also we saw tonight went for that big hit. Are you concerned at all about Arber Xhekaj? Because it's kind of easy to lose track that he's only played about 50 games in the NHL. Like this guy's still getting used to the NHL game, right?
Yeah, I think I'm not concerned. I think that he's still really young in his career, and you got to give him some breathing space to make some of those mistakes and then learn from them, right? He's had some games this year where he was extremely effective. His underlying numbers were fantastic. Mm-hmm. He's had some other ones where less so. I think this game against the Knights, he had a few plays that whiff on the hit. There was a few passes that really kind of made me, not too sure about those ones. On the power play, there was a few times where he got the puck at the line and bobbled it. Like you said, maybe a timing issue, right? And I think that'll probably get itself sorted out the more reps that he actually has. You go back to that game against the Jets. I mean, his underlying numbers weren't great, but he was getting very physical with the Jets. He was letting them know exactly where he was, and you could tell that they were a lot more tentative to try anything around the net when he was on the ice. That value, I mean, again, if you look at underlying stats, you might go, well, he wasn't good in this game because his underlying numbers weren't good. Well, that intrinsic value of being able to like kind of make people think a little bit once or twice more than they normally would when they're around the net, it helps you. And it helped him against the Jets. I think a little bit less so in this particular game. It was a little bit more high flying and he didn't really get a chance to impose himself physically, but when he does, he can be a very effective player for them. So I just give him time. I'm not worried about him yet. I think he's growing and he's learning and he's going to get better.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I look at it too, and I feel like he's already surpassed the expectations to begin with, right? Like that's the key part there. So
yeah,
those hits, and the thing is, if he just tightens up those those penalties, I feel like really he's being picked on by the refs. But if he tightens that up, then he automatically becomes a plus value player, right? So the good news is that, as you mentioned, like there was a play earlier in the year where he came back. I believe it was against the Leafs in Game 1, bumped Matthew Knees right off the puck. Took it up, drove it up the ice with control into the offensive zone, led to a high danger chance. And I'm like, wow, that is the Arber Xhekaj that you want to see everywhere, right? So, yeah, right now, maybe not at his best, but I'm not overly worried about him. I'm also not worried about Kaden Guhle. Matt, let's talk about how, well, first of all, Kay's going to love this, but Kaden Guhle is just playing some fantastic hockey, and he's rough and tumble. He's hitting guys. He's playing fantastically defensively. We saw last game against the Jets, that move against Connor, fantastic. Tonight we saw him control the puck. His goal that when he passed Yoel Armia in the last game to set up that goal, that was exactly what the Canadiens need on their blue line. So it's too early, but where do you see? I always held back and said Kaden Guhle like a number 2 or 3 guy. Is there a possibility he becomes a number 1 defenseman in the NHL?
I think we're seeing him ascend to that role this
season
with the way that he's playing. Yeah, I think this is the next step for him towards becoming that legit number 1 defender. Against the Jets, he was the most used player. He skated more minutes than anybody else. Now, of course, Mike Matheson did leave that game with an injury, so maybe he would have been the most used player. But then against the Golden Knights, he was their best defenseman, bar none. I think he was better than Matheson. I think that was a pretty easy call to make that he was better than Matheson.
Yeah, not his best night.
He had a pass. He had a pass he made at one point where he was just outside of his own blue line, or just inside of his own blue line, I think. And he passed to Cole Caulfield all the way across. It was basically a 3-line pass because it got them into the offensive zone. And I had to rewind my TV to watch that pass again to be like, how did he get that through all those sticks? Because it was a mess of sticks in between there and where Cole Caulfield was. And somehow he put it tape to tape. So the way that he's affecting transition right now is going to be huge for the Habs. because they really, outside of Mike Matheson, who else do they have that can impact transition that much from the blue line? Not many, at least not consistently. He's been doing it consistently, especially since he came back from injury. He's looked fantastic. I thought maybe he was going to be a step behind or something. We might have a bit of a timing issue with him after he missed a few games to injury. Not whatsoever. He's looked excellent. I think this is great news for the rebuild. If he does indeed have the ability to ascend to that number one role permanently, fantastic news for the rebuild, because they've got such a deep pool of defensemen right now that knowing he could be your number one, it all of a sudden gives you a lot more options. And you're less reliant on some of those other players, being able to become number one defenders. You can imagine, you saw the chemistry that Lane Hudson and David Reinbacher had when they were playing together at the rookie camp, and everybody's going, well, maybe that's the number one pair of the future. Maybe not. Maybe that's the number two pair. They get to play against slightly lesser opposition and create more offensively. And Kaden Guhle can take the reins and play those tough minutes for you and excel in those minutes. I'm excited by what I'm seeing from him. It was a fantastic game from him. That's 2 in a row where he's looked like a world beater almost. So I'm loving it.
And again, it's going back to last year when we saw there was that potential, but I promised I wouldn't slag he whose name shall not be spoken, but it's just fun to see him thrive. And obviously having a new defensive partner helps. What you said there about in transition is so important, not just because they need guys in the back end doing it. You lost Kirby Dach. He's your best guy in transition. That's why Sean Monahan's so important, because he's fantastic in transition. So seeing Guhle set up those plays, those controlled entries, I mean, he's looking good just with his hair, with his beautiful hair, and he's looking great on the ice. But we have to give credit to his partner tonight. I thought Justin Barron, man, I'll admit, coming into camp, I'm like, man, what's going on with this guy? His confidence is gone. What is he doing? He's come out just like, like when we were younger, we'd sit on the gates when the horses would come out from the farm, right, for the first in springtime, and you just hit there rumbling, and that's how Justin Barron rumbled out of the gates. He's scoring goals. He's playing well defensively. He's adapted to Guhle. Is this a pairing in the works, you think?
It could be. I mean, I guess we're not naming the guy from last year, but that one didn't work.
Andrew will. He'd be throwing strays that way, but we're not going to do it this time.
Yeah. I probably would too normally, but I agree with you. We'll keep it positive instead of throwing strays at anybody.
Yeah.
I thought he looked early in the season. Guhle looked pretty good with Johnny Kovacevic. That was a pairing that I thought would make some sense. Give him a little bit more offensive ability on his other side. So far with Barron, it's worked quite well. And Barron, I think he's just a slow starter because he did look kind of rough in the early goings there and in the preseason, and that's what made him kind of the seventh guy. He was kind of the forgotten guy for a little bit. Injuries give him an opportunity, and all of a sudden he's running with it. We saw that last year too, right? He had to start in Laval. He did well there, but he was not doing very well there at the beginning of the year either. Anybody who follows the Rocket will tell you the first few games for him were pretty rough. Then he got better and better, and then he got his chance at the NHL, and then he looked very much like an NHL defenseman when he got there. And it's kind of the same thing this year. Had a bit of a rough start in the preseason. Just practicing with the team, didn't really get a chance to play. Injuries put him in the lineup, and he's gotten better and better with every game that he's played. So hopefully that continues. And if it does, yeah, absolutely. You could be looking at a pairing of the future for them. Not sure if Justin Barron has that top pair ability to play against, the number one line of the other team night in and night out. It could
be a great second pair, eh? Ideally.
It could. Yeah. And hey, I think right now they're still in the feeling out process of their rebuild. So I think when you find something that works, stick with it as long as you can. Yeah. So for me, that pairing worked against one of the better teams in the league, the reigning Stanley Cup champions. Keep rolling with it, right?
I think they control like 90% of the shots, man. And that's in a game where you got outshot. That's pretty darn impressive, So they're also, Kaden is mentioning, Kaden with a C is in our chat mentioning, we talked about the game. Maybe we'll talk about prospects a little bit, and we're going to keep it somewhat quick tonight. I thank everyone for staying up late. You're all amazing. I mean, I wouldn't do this for me, but you're all doing it for Game Over, and we appreciate it. If you could like the stream and subscribe, we'd appreciate it. So Kaden brings something up here. Wants to talk about Lane Hudson, saying he's underrated. Well, I don't know if he's underrated, because in my world, I rate him very, very high. I'd say the Montreal Canadiens have never had a prospect like this, and I'm going all the way back. Like, I'm talking legitimate, not the Larry Robinson when he played for the Voyageurs. Obviously, he was very good. I'm talking modern hockey. They've never had a prospect like Lane Hudson. His game the other night was just, what I love about it, Matt, is just picking up little plays here and there where he walks the blue line with the greatest of ease. You know, it's almost like watching Michael Jackson do a moonwalk, but he's doing it with the puck. He's doing it creating open lanes. Lane Hudson, David Reinbacher, Logan Mailloux, I'm forgetting, you know, even William Trudeau. Like, I've been afraid to say the Canadiens are set because we said this a long time ago, but it really does seem like the Montreal Canadiens are set. Do you believe with your whole heart that Lane Hudson's going to automatically come in and dominate? Because I think he's going to need an adjustment period, and I don't want fans to get too worried about that. But this is going to be his last year in the NCAA. Where do you see Lane Hudson in the lineup next year?
It might be an adjustment period for him. He might need to play a little bit in Laval first, and it's nothing against him whatsoever. I think I've said this many times. If he could play, if they were able to call him up tomorrow, right, and he was going to play against St. Louis on Thursday, if all they had to do, or if all they could do, was just get him on the ice to play in transition and then hop him back off, particularly try to keep him out of the defensive zone, he absolutely could impact the game in a big way because he's got that shiftiness. Like I saw you had the GIF up on your account actually the other night where you completely nutmegged a defender, embarrassed that guy in front of
Sent
everybody
him to the netherworld. Like,
yeah, he went face first into the boards and was like,
I'll put it in the chat while you're keep talking. I'm gonna go find it and I'll put it in the chat so people can see it because that was just And that's what I'm talking about. He does that. You know this. He does that 50 times per game.
Yeah, he does it multiple times per game. His passing is unbelievable. So we talked about with Kaden Guhle, you know, the controlled zone exits, controlled zone entries. He can do both. Like he can take it out of his zone all the way into the other zone. And then as soon as you start focusing on him too much, all of a sudden he's throwing a no-look pass into the middle and one of his forwards are picking it up and putting a shot on goal. So the way that he's able to generate offense is something that I think absolutely translates to the NHL at this point. So I think they could put him straight into the NHL, and I think he would have some success. But you might also have some drawbacks, particularly in his own zone. So I think it might be better for them to ease him into that, not throw him immediately into a big role. And if they do bring him up, and you know, it's entirely possible with the amount of skill that he has, that he shows up at camp next year and makes himself undeniable, and they have no choice but to put him on the opening night roster. If that's the case, I would put him on the third pair. I would let him play against lesser opposition, let him figure out his timing, and hopefully he can, you know, eventually work his way up in the lineup. I don't think he's a guy that would stay on the third pair for very long. And I hate saying this so much because people always jump on me and they're like, "Oh, you're saying he's the next Cale Makar." He's got some Cale Makar in him. You watch the way Cale Makar is able to fake out opposing players, and he doesn't have the size, but he's got that ability with the puck, and that's extremely rare. And like you said, haven't had a prospect like that in Montreal
ever.
I can't think of a defenseman that had that kind of electric ability since PK Subban, and before that, I don't know. I don't think anybody has. You mentioned Larry Robinson. Larry Robinson, very different type of player, bruising guy, right? Yeah. Lane Hudson is. I think he's the real deal, and I think if he comes up next year, I hope they ease him into it. But I would not be surprised if he makes himself undeniable and he's on the opening night roster.
Well, and neither would I, because when I was speaking to Adam Nicholas after the camp, what happened was at the time I was still with the Canadiens, and I'm walking back and I'm like, we had this whole conversation, we didn't say an actual word. Because I'm like, I went like, Lane Hudson, and then he just grunted at me, and then I grunted more, and then he kept grunting. We were just grunting at each other, but we were like in approval of Lane Hudson. It was like, So anyways, through that conversation, he told me that he's, you know, we actually talked about it with our words later on, but he's like, man, this guy absorbs everything so damn quickly. He's raw, he's very raw, and he's like, I have to work on his skating, but he's not afraid of you know, how much information he has to absorb. You know, so yeah, Lane Hudson, absolutely fantastic. And as King of the North mentions, my boy, Adam Engstrom over in Europe, that's just a bonus right there. You got this guy in the second rounder who's just playing, second rounder, who's just playing incredibly well for Rogel. This year, not as well as last year in terms of overall his plays producing more. But again, 19 years old, he might have just turned 20, playing top pairing in the SHL. Very, very good news. So yeah, everything's encouraging from a defensive prospect standpoint. Now, let's talk, and don't forget, if you have any questions, we'll be getting to the third segment very, very soon. But I have Matt on, and I have to ask him about his favorite prospect of all time, Corey Locke. No, Joshua Roy is playing quite well in the AHL, and I'm going to be the annoying guy to say, leave him there. Like, so many people are, bring him up. Why? Il fait bien, man. Il joue vraiment bien. Like, he's doing exactly what you wanted him to do in the AHL. I get it. He's the most exciting offensive prospect, but you have to be careful with him to not kind of ruin that development, right? Like the Habs have a long history of really rushing guys into the NHL, and there's someone I have in mind that we haven't spoken about, who was playing on the second line today, which, by the way, that second line, potentiel dans la poubelle, it's got to go. But let's talk about what you think. You think Joshua Roy should be in the NHL right now, whereas I think, like Kay, let him cook.
Well, it's not necessarily like I'm not trying to beat down Kent Hughes or Martin St. Louis door and say put him in the NHL right now. I'm fine with him in Laval, and he's playing excellent. So I don't think there's any. I think there's no harm in leaving him there. But I think the next time that they need a body, that's the guy that they should be called.
Yeah, not even Elias Anderson.
No, I would pick Joshua Roy before him, and that's nothing against Elias Anderson. He's been playing great for the Rocket as well. But that would be my next call, would be Joshua Roy. And I know people want to leave him down there. But one thing I've been saying about Joshua Roy for the last 3 years, don't sleep on this kid. He is 100% capable of playing in the NHL right now.
Well-rounded
I've said
game.
this so many times. He would work extremely well with Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki. He might be the guy that works best with them. And I know Raphael Harvey-Pinard, nothing against him. He played great with them tonight. But Joshua Roy's forechecking ability, his defensive acumen would be something that's kind of missing right now in that trio. He has the ability to turn pucks over in transition and create quick strike opportunities that Cole Caulfield would feast on. You put him in a situation with the Montreal Canadiens right now, I'm sure that he'd be doing very well. Just maybe not as well as he's doing with the Rocket, but he'd be creating a lot of opportunities. He'd be, getting the fans excited a little bit. I think he absolutely could play. He'd be my next call. So again, I'm fine with him playing Laval. Not trying to make the argument that they need to bring him up right now. I'm just saying next time they need to make a call, I hope that's who they're calling.
Yeah, and I get it. I absolutely get it. Actually, someone our friend Sebastian Jackson is in the chat. So how's it going, Sebastian? Yeah, I totally get it, but I'm gonna go over it again. I'd pick Elias Anderson to come up, and has nothing to do with punishing Joshua Roy. It's almost, and I don't know how you explain it to him, but you say like, man, you're so valuable that we don't want to risk it right now, because I feel like he's just manna that fell from the heavens, right? 5th round pick. We all know that when he played for St. John's, he couldn't identify his goalie out of a police lineup. But he as you mentioned, the reason he would do so well in the NHL is because he has such a well-rounded game, right? Like defensively,
you'd be in big trouble in my hood right now for saying St. John's, man. He played for St. John. Two different cities. People get real upset about that around here.
That's fair enough. Absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes I misspell them. I'll go ST and je m'excuse tout le monde, Nouveau-Brunswick. He was, my bad about that. But we do know that he's emerged as a 200-foot player. So I'm with you on the fact that he'd do well in Montreal, because you can trust him defensively, right? And what you mentioned there, the vision with Cole Caulfield would be great. It would alleviate a lot of the defensive pressure on Suzuki, which allow him to, you know what? You've talked me into it. That's it. Call up Joshua Roy. He's got to be the next guy playing in Montreal. But I really do think Elias Anderson makes more sense. Just for, I guess maybe, I don't know, man. Maybe I've just been scarred. Like, I'm worried about bringing these guys up too fast. And you know me, Matt. I'm a guy that's always, hey, if he deserves it, get him up. But I feel like I'm the old man now that's saying, no, keep him in the AHL. I don't know what it is, but are you worried about the development angle of the Habs?
You know what it is, right? It's scar tissue from having seen them rush people before, which, they've made the argument with Slafkovsky. They made the argument with Alex Galchenyuk. There's been a lot of prospects that have come through the system, Kotkaniemi, where people have said, they rushed this guy.
Louis Leblanc, someone mentioned Latendresse earlier, but they kind of did that to him too, right? Like,
we could go down the list but you could also go down the list of, people that they brought up that seemed like maybe it was a little bit early and it actually went quite well for them. Like PK Subban, for instance, went quite well for them when they brought him up. Yeah. Cole Caulfield, they kind of took their time with him. But once he came up, there was no time in Laval for him. It was straight to the show. And in fact, he went basically straight into the playoffs almost for the Montreal Canadiens, and they went on a big run. So sometimes you have those players who are ready for the bright lights. Joshua Roy is one of those players. Smart. You saw it at the World Juniors, man. You get the bright lights there. He's got to go play on the top line with Connor Bedard. He's eating huge minutes for the team. He's killing penalties. He's playing power play as well. If Team Canada can trust him under those kind of lights to the point where he was a key player for them in 2 gold medal wins, this guy's got ice in his veins. They could bring him up tomorrow and he would be just fine. Again, I'm not trying to rush him. I'm not saying do it tomorrow, but if you needed a guy tomorrow,
maybe Thursday.
Maybe Thursday. Hey, if you need somebody. I don't think they do. I think they're okay, but
Yeah, absolutely. Also, if those just by the way, if you can, if anyone's on Twitter, so Sebastian, unfortunately wasn't a great day for him, so his cousin is missing in Montreal. So if you can go check out the Twitter, you can throw that in the chat there, Sebastian, and if everyone can circulate that and we can pass the news, and if you've seen her, it'd be great to obviously to report it. So we hope that that works out very well for our friend Sebastian. Yeah, and Mathieu Barrette mentions Paling here. Yeah, there's a lot of guys that have been rushed, but the best point here is from Chris Walker saying there's no point in bringing him up for just 15% of his ice time. So I'm with him on that. If it's going to be a fourth line, like I hate the idea of putting prospects in the fourth line, the guys that can score, and you got to work your way up it. Pourquoi? Why are we doing that? Like, what's the logic there? You put him with guys that he needs to play. So with me, it's top 6 or bust. Stay in Laval. Like kind of, you know what? Don't forget. PK Subban spent this whole year in the AHL as well, right? So there's evidence to suggest it would be good, but yeah, I'm not too worried about the ice time thing. However, because Martin Saint-Louis really likes guys that are good defensively, and Joshua Roy,
yeah,
would you agree with me right now? He'd be one of their best defensive forwards, like immediately.
I think he'd be up there with Monahan, for sure.
Yeah,
I don't think they have very many guys, especially just transitional defense. The way that he keeps an active stick, and he jumps on passes. Like if you make a bad pass and he's on the ice, he's going to get a stick on it, or he's going to get a skate on it. He's going to figure out a way to disrupt that.
Yeah.
His vision's great, anticipation great. And I, by the way, completely agree with what you guys are saying. I would not bring him up if it's to play on the fourth line. That does not make any sense. Bring him up, give him a shot in the top 6. If you're not going to do that, leave him right where he is. Let him play top 6 minutes down there.
Let him cook.
When I make this argument, well, that's why I'm always mentioning the possibility of trying him out with Caulfield and Suzuki, is because if they do it, I'd love to see him play in the top 6. Look at the second line right now. I think they could use a bit of a kick start. So if you're not going to try him with Caulfield and Suzuki, you could try him on that second line and see if maybe he, gets them going a little bit, because since Doc left, they've been pretty brutal.
And that is okay. So we'll get to the third segment. So if you have any questions or have any comments, we'll just start interacting with the chat a little bit more. But hey, we always love all of you, so we appreciate everyone being here. Especially it's late. It's 1:30 in the morning here. What time is it over there? What time is it in New Brunswick?
It's 2:30.
Oof, and you have a young child, so yeah, but not quite as young as not quite as Yuri Slafkovsky. He's a little bit older. He's still quite young though. One point I wanted to make tonight was, out of all the guys, if they go out tonight, and they will, I guarantee it, because you always keep an extra day in Vegas, especially if you're only playing Thursday. So they have a party night tonight. That's always how it goes in Vegas. Yuri Slafkovsky can't join the party. He's not 21 years old. You know what I mean? So like we got to remind ourselves. I know it hasn't been great for him, and no one misses Kirby Dach more than Yuri Slafkovsky. However, I'd say Alex Newhook might miss Dach almost as much as Slafkovsky. He's doing what he can, but the style, here's my take on it. You said it's bad. I think they all bring something different to the ice. So Newhook, east-west guy, right? Josh Anderson, north-south guy. And Slafkovsky is the kind of guy that he needs a little more time when you set up in the zone, so he needs time and space. None of these styles work. Like it's all contradictory, and I'm just not sure why they're running that second line. It's not good for Anderson. It's not good for Slafkovsky. It's not good for Newhook. What do you do though? Do you just switch Monahan, like, and bring down Newhook, or I don't know? Because the Monahan line, as you mentioned, has been amazing, like really good. So
yeah,
it's just the numbers are so bad right now. They're getting outshot. They're getting outchanced. Josh Anderson's the only man in the world who has 10 high danger chances and doesn't get a shot. I don't know what's going on there, but like there's good elements, but it's clearly not working right now. Do you blow up that line immediately?
I mean, it's the only reason that it's hard to do it is because then who are you removing from another line, right? I don't think you want to touch that, again, quote unquote third line. They're basically the second line. Some nights they're even the first line in terms of production. So I don't think you want to mess with a good thing there. Rafael Harvey-Pinard has clearly been the most effective player on the top line, so I don't want to flip him and Anderson, even if that might be to the slight benefit of the second line.
And Anderson does not play well on that line, let's be honest. Or actually, it's not just him. All three don't play well, yeah.
I think this is where the argument that a lot of Habs fans are trying to make, where they say, send Yuri Slafkovsky down, let him get a little stint with the Laval Rocket where he can play top 6 minutes, maybe get some of that confidence back, because it's not like he's playing bad.
No.
It's like he's just a slight step behind on certain plays. He's making good plays. He seems reluctant to shoot. He seems like he's got a very pass-first mentality there, and he's given up some good looks to try and make some lower percentage passes that, maybe he would stop doing that if he had the opportunity to play against slightly lesser competition in the AHL and just keep some of those looks for himself. I wonder if a short stint down there wouldn't do wonders for his confidence. And then in the meantime, you could make a call up. You could call up Joshua Roy. You could call up Elias Anderson. And then you could start playing around with the lines and seeing a configuration that works without touching your number 1 or your number 3 lines that have been your 2 best lines. It's a tough act for Martin St. Louis right now. I don't envy him because you have 2 lines that are firing on all cylinders. You have a 4th line that's serviceable. They're usually pretty much close to a wash. Yeah, they're not contributing a whole lot, but they're also not giving up a whole lot, which is kind of what you want out of your 4th line, is to eat minutes, right? It's just that second line. They can't seem to figure out anything that works. So I don't know. Maybe you need to look at shaking things up a little bit, bringing somebody up from the farm.
It's funny because they actually, right now, Mathieu Barrette mentioned, and this is something that the only person that's never gotten an audition on that top line is Juraj Slafkovsky. I like, ironically, I remember being in the locker room with him, like literally right after they drafted him. I'm like, who do you want to play with? He's like, Caulfield and Suzuki. Like immediately, everyone was talking about it, and he hasn't had his shot, so it might be interesting to give him a go, right? Like, you got nothing to lose. But I'm with you. I had a whole section written about him going to Laval last game, but I'm like, hey, it's a win. Let's not talk about it. It's really just about finding him ice time, and it doesn't matter where you get ice time for Slafkovsky. Just like if it's Laval, that's perfect. If it's Montreal, that's perfect. But right now, it's just he's a guy with utmost confidence, and you feel like he doesn't have it because someone else mentioned here, Ryan Baker, Slafkovsky has more time than he thinks he does, and he's right because the biggest issue with Slafkovsky is because he took too much time at first. Now he's getting rid of the puck. Like now he's going almost too fast. So. He went from a guy that took forever to a guy that's premature, so it's just, that did not come out right. But, it's just not working right now. The processor isn't figuring out the speed of the time, and I don't think his line mates are helping. So, it's funny because I want to preach patience, but I'm right there with people saying he's got to start producing. He's got to start producing. But again, 19 years old. This man is 19 years old. He will not be 20 until March. So, he's arguably got another 21 years of hockey in him. So, I think we'll probably look back at this in a couple of years and be like, wow, like we overreacted. But at the same time, hey, Kotkaniemi's starting to produce now. I don't know if that would have happened if he would have stayed in Montreal with that ice time. So something has to happen from the Canadian standpoint. And I think that comes with confidence. And as you said, probably in Laval. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's true. Habs Rule mentioned easy on the Roy hype. I agree. It's just that he's actually like a complete game. That's the cool part about Joshua Roy. But the other part is he's cooled down a little bit in the last few days, and that's what I was expecting in Laval. He wasn't going to go 2 points per game forever. So, no rush. He's found money. It's a found wallet, to quote Ryan Burke, a found wallet there. Can't see Canadiens saying apparently he was benched at the end of the game. Was that Slafkovsky? Well, what happens? Here's the other part that really screws with Slafkovsky's confidence. Last year, okay, so technically he played more on the 3rd line than the 4th line, but in all reality, at the end of games, when things became intense or became close, St. Louis drops him down to the 4th line or the bench and brings someone else up to the 3rd line. So he played 10 minutes average or 10-15 in even strength last year, the lowest amount of any rookie in the last 10 years. So the issue is that he's not trusted in those high pressure situations, and obviously that gets to him. He knows when the game's on the line, he's not on the ice. It's the opposite of Suzuki or Guhle. So, but we don't want to be too critical because again, very young. I just think confidence, take some shots. You got to get him with a guy that creates time and space. I'd like to see Slafkovsky with Sean Monahan. Maybe, and it's harsh, but maybe you move Pearson off that line. He's been playing really well, but let's be perfectly honest, Pearson is not part of the future of this team. So, I really think you need a guy that's good in transition, and that's where Sean Monahan comes into play. So, Habs Rule mentions thinks Armia's playing well. Fucking right he is. Armia's playing like a bull, out there. He's playing really, really well. And Matt, I think he took the whole AHL thing like a goddamn champion.
He did. He went down there and he was dominant. He was clearly too good for the AHL.
Right, scores on his first shift, immediately.
Yeah, his first shift he scores. I watched that whole game actually. Of course, I'm trying to watch Joshua Roy mostly, but I was watching that game, and every time that he was anywhere near the puck, I was like, "Hey, this he's not an NHL player. He's an NHL player." The only problem with him in the NHL is that he's just significantly overpaid. right? The Habs would love to
If
have
he
moved
was
on
$2
from that
million,
contract already at this point.
if he was $2
Yeah.
million, you'd say he's one of the best third or fourth liners in the league.
Oh yeah, no problem. Because it's not like he's a bad player.
No.
He's just it's the same effect that Jonathan Drouin was getting when he was in Montreal, where people were really harping on him because they're saying, "Oh, he's not bad. He's just his contract's a little too rich for everybody's blood." So I wonder if he keeps playing like this, is there a possibility that Kent Hughes finds some miracle deal to get that contract off the books? Now I know that's a tough sell because he is again significantly overpaid, but man, he managed to get rid of the Mike Hoffman contract. Everybody thought that contract
been doing
could never
miracles with these contracts.
So
like
if you get rid of that one and Yoel Armia wants to keep playing the way that he's playing right now, maybe there's a possibility that he figures out a way to move on from that contract, hopefully without retaining salary. Because I don't think they want to use their last retention slot on Yoel Armia.
Because it's 2 years left, right? Is that it? 2 years?
Yeah, it's 2 years. Well,
so then you have 2 years on Petrie. You have 2 years, but then Edmondson opens up next year. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
like at the same time, it's great to keep it, but you have to, might as well use it. I like that Ken Hughes has been pretty aggressive with it. You remember when Marc Dumont would save up all that cap space, then he just wouldn't use it? Well, like these are fleeting assets, right? They're depreciating assets. They do have an expiry date, so I don't mind retaining on him if you can get but it can't be for a 5th round pick. It can't be like the Petrie thing where it was like a gift. You'd have to get some sort of value. I think his saving grace was what you do, Matt, is you take video of just him fighting on the boards, like every single board battle he's ever had in Montreal. You ship it out to every single NHL team. You're like, look at that, because this guy is legitimately a menace in puck battles. So it's just I've never seen a guy that has 99% of the game, then he gets to the net and like it just is, but you notice that now he came back and he's really working hard. He's renewed sense of vigor. So I'm happy for him as a person. You know what I mean? Like it can't be great at that point in your career to get sent down. That's rough. He took it like a champ. So, like honestly, I would say that right now, I was going to say he's one of the better players, but he's right in the middle of the pack, and that's where you want him to be. So, okay, so yeah, the Sharks are awful. Yeah, the Sharks are going to be Macklin Celebrini-ating their draft pick this year. Have you seen Macklin Celebrini play beside Lane Hudson in Boston yet?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, man. I'm slightly envious of the Sharks, although they're going to have a pretty rough road on the way to probably drafting him. Yeah, he's very good.
Oh my God. And the best part or the worst part is that he's doing all this with Lane Hudson. Hudson's just feeding him left and right. And it's like, wow, he's almost to the point that, and I didn't think he was this good, but he's almost worth selling the farm for, right? Not quite Bedal level, but damn, this kid, like 17 years old. And he's just right away scoring goals. He scored, I think, 6 goals in 5 games. Might be 7 and 6 by now. But Macklin Celebrini, and there's other guys in that draft too, even Demidov. But yeah, going to be a very good draft. I don't think the Habs are going to be bottom 5 though. Even though I predicted it, I think I got them wrong. Do you think they're going to finish bottom 5 still?
I don't think they're going to be bad enough for bottom 5. I think that the level of play that we're seeing from them right now, particularly at 5-on-5. Even when they're up against teams that are much better on paper, they're bringing it to them. They were right in this game with the Vegas Golden Knights. You could make a pretty convincing argument that they were the better team over the reigning Stanley Cup champions who have not yet lost the game in regulation. I really don't think that this team is going to be that bad that they're bottom 5. I would tell anybody who's worried about that and thinks, wow, we need to be bottom 5 to get a better pick. I'm telling you, take a look at any draft rankings. You're going to see a lot of really interesting defensemen that are popping up in like the 10s.
Oh no, you said defensemen. Fans are going to be upset about that one.
No,
got to be a forward.
Wait, that's what I'm saying though. Is some of those defensemen are going to jump into the top 10 on draft day. So other teams are going to take them. It's going to push some forwards down. So if the Habs are in the 12, 13, 14 range, don't be surprised if they get another Cole Caulfield-esque opportunity in that draft, because I think there's some forwards that are going to slide for defensemen, and you're going to have an opportunity in the early teens to get somebody who shouldn't be
there. Yeah, no, absolutely. And even last year, and I don't want to bring it up again, but a guy like, but I will, not even Matvei Michkov, Zach Benson, what he fell to what, like, I don't know. He didn't go top 5, and you
Sabres got him. Did they get him at 12?
At 12. Holy crap! That's
no business being there.
Like that's as good as Caulfield at 15. He was the best playmaker in the draft by far. So yeah, I like the idea of if you just draft based on numbers. I know it sounds so unscientific, but you'll actually end up usually we did a project when I was with SB Nation. Well, you were there as well, but remember the Leafs? They said instead of Dave Nonis, if we draft with a potato, but the only thing the potato could do was draft the guy with the highest points, and they ran a bunch of simulations, and that potato absolutely blew Dave Nonis out of the water. So. Again, I know defense were important, but at this point, the Habs will have to focus on some offense, and we're gonna have guys like you mentioned after Demidov that are quite good. Okay, so if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We've been live for what now? Oh my God, 45 minutes, and you're all still listening to us. We appreciate it. There's a ton of people here. Thank you all so much. If you could like the chat and subscribe, we would also appreciate it. We have a mention here of Armia close to the net is Lyle Odeline by Chris Walker. Well, that's a compliment in my books, because Lyle Odeline, no joke, is one of my favorite players of all time. So there will be no goddamn Lyle Odeline disparagement in this chat. The pride of Quill Lake, a man who scored a hat trick for the Stanley Cup defending Montreal Canadiens. Put some respect on Lyle Odeline's name. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, what do we do when Dvorak's back? Secret Agent Man mentions he is a center. So do you just Monahan second line, Dvorak third line, see if it works, or?
I keep forgetting about Dvorak.
Yeah, me too.
To be honest.
I legitimately forgot about Dvorak. Yeah.
It could potentially solve your whole second line issue there. Absolutely. Because you could play around a little bit and see who works best on that second line.
Yeah.
It's going to leave somebody as the odd man out, though, either dropping off out of the lineup altogether or down. I don't think they want to move Juraj Slafkovsky down the lineup. I think if you're going to do that, you might as well let him play top six in that battle. I don't think they want to move Brendan Gallagher down. I don't think that Tanner Pearson deserves to get moved down and play on the fourth line at this point. So somebody's going to be the odd man out when he comes back. But absolutely, I think you could play around with it a little bit, and it might solve that issue for you. I think the first person I would try on that second line to see if you can get it going is, as you mentioned, Sean Monahan.
Yeah.
He's been playing excellent this year. He deserves a chance at a promotion. And you get the added benefit of, well, if you are considering trading him, moving him up in the lineup, and if he works there too, it's a big bat signal to the rest of the league that you better trade for this guy if you're a contender, because he can jumpstart a line that seems like it's dead in the water. I think Dvorak coming back could potentially solve that for you. I'd play around with it though. I'd try him out. I'd maybe even try Dvorak on that second line as well to see if maybe he's the guy there. But they need to do something to figure out that second line, because right now it's the biggest weak spot in their lineup.
Joe Gannon says, how does Dom Sham still keep Cole Caulfield off the score sheet? Doesn't even matter which bench he's behind. I feel bad for Dom Sham because, okay, he's not the reason Cole Caulfield shot 0% while he was behind the coach. Now, he failed at getting him going again, and he gave him that stupid rookie treatment. I'm gonna bench you during the playoffs, which is pretty fucking stupid. Let's admit it. He didn't have confidence in him, but it's not Dom Sham's fault that Cole Caulfield couldn't score while he was there. You know what I mean? So, but there's a lot that he did that wasn't too great, and I always laugh when people are talking about what he did to the Cole Caulfield. It was a fart when it came to using Cole Caulfield. I still can't believe that didn't he bench him in the playoffs? Yeah, he benched Cole Caulfield in the playoffs, didn't he? Or no, fourth line, or what was it again?
He demoted him. I don't remember him.
He didn't bench him
benched
though.
altogether.
No, but
he just moved him down the lineup and cut his minutes significantly, which was a patently fucking ridiculous
classic
thing to do.
Dom Sham.
The best shot on your team is, let's just neuter the offense. The thing with Sham is, in that playoff run, he had the luxury of just tapping Philippe Danault on the shoulder anytime that the best players in the other team jumped on the ice.
Go take care of Matthews. Go take care of, yeah.
And he would go out there and do all the lifting for you. So then, we get to the end of that run, and a lot of people are, he gets a contract extension. A lot of people are going, wow, he did a pretty good job there, coming in, coaching that team all the way to the final.
Carey Price did a good job.
Carey Price did a great job.
Yeah, exactly.
So I almost forgot Carey Price. He had two luxuries there.
Yeah.
One, a center that can shut down the other team's best line, and two, Carey Price at the top of his game. That's luxuries that most coaches don't have. Most coaches have to try and do more with less.
Yeah, absolutely. what they're saying. Oh yeah, so Sam is mentioning that the healthy scratch Caulfield for the first few games. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look, and it's late there, but I do remember something about that. And I'll tell you right now, every single time you talk about, oh, they lost the room, the coach lost the room, it's almost always bullshit. It was so true for the Habs. It might have been the first time that in Habs history he lost the room. The players, they didn't just not like him, they disrespected him. Like, they're walking out. If you'd be like, guys, we have a meeting, they'd be like, go fuck yourself, Dom, and they'd walk out. You know what I mean? Like, they hated this guy with a passion. It came out, it was Jeff Petrie that had to mention it to the media, but yeah, they really did not like Dom Sham. And I feel bad too, because it was just a shitty situation. I don't think any other coach would have done better that year, honestly. But yeah, it's when he tried to fix it, he went old school, like a 100-year-old coach, and that didn't work. Chris just poured a cask of single strength. Nice of malt. Okay, yeah. I've been wanting to get back into whiskey and bourbon there recently. I'm not a big Scotch guy, but I can't because I have this new medicine for my heart. So I can't do drinking anymore, and I can't go out in the sun anymore. It's really fun. Don't get old. Just don't get old. I'm telling everyone now. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up. And as Chris mentions, Sham didn't. He also had Weber, who was like playing despite being broken, giving his all. Yeah. Sherrod actually played pretty well considering. Corey Perry was on all sorts of dominant streaks. So yeah, that was a fun year. I'll tell you right now, I was working for the Canadiens, and I have to admit that was the most fun I've ever had. I was working with my producer, and we were just laughing the whole time. So I have great memories about that run, at least. And I remember coming out one day, just having a smoke real quick. I look over, you're standing there with Georges Larac, you're on TV. You were bigger than Georges Larac. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but you had the he wasn't flexing, but man, you were almost twice his arm size. So I got to give you props for making Georges Larac look small.
Well, I mean, he's quite a bit taller than me, and there's actually a funny picture that I took from one of the TV hits that we did together, where like he was talking and I was looking at him like up like this, and it kind of looks like I was thinking about whether or not I could fight him.
Right.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And the reality is he would destroy.
Oh my God.
He's a very large man. I might have bigger arms, but that's just because I'm younger and I pump a lot of weight. So
no, him it's not him is not what you would call like model arms. Him is just coarse, like it's pure strength there. You know, he's got that hockey strength in him there. Yeah. No, don't fight Georges Larac. It doesn't matter if he's a vegetarian or not. You know, you just don't fight Georges Larac. Yeah. All right, so thank you so much, everybody. Honestly, this is so cool. We had a ton of people viewing. I love our Habs fans. They're in it no matter what. It's been a fun season. You know what I mean? Like, they're winning. The vibes are good. The vibes are good in the rebuild. We will be back on Thursday when the Canadiens face the Arizona Coyotes at Mullet Arena, which is sponsored I guess by the college? It's like the Sun Devils or what. It's funny, you go in there and you can't see Coyotes anywhere. But Matt, I'll tell you this, I'd love to go to watch a game in Arizona. You want to go pick up a game there?
I could go down to my local high school rink and probably watch a game with about as many people. So
and you probably have like a few more fans. So thank you everybody in the chat. Honestly, we all appreciate you. We'll see you again on Thursday. Matt, where can they find you?
Yeah, www.habseyesandtheprize.com. All of my writing, you can find it there. We also have podcasts as well. We don't have a video version, because nobody needs to look at my mug for too long. That's why Mark brings me on for the late ones only. Try to keep me away from most of the people, right? But you can find us anywhere. Just Eyes on the Prize, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. We're with the Believe Network now, which is a new network that we're with. They handle most of our advertising and stuff. Great place, actually. They got a lot of interesting podcasts. You can check them out as well on Twitter or elsewhere. And Eyes on the Prize, anywhere that you get your podcasts.
Awesome. And yeah, you can find him on Twitter. I believe you said that. Matt P Drake. Is there? Yeah, it's P Drake, right?
No, it's just DrakeMT.
DrakeMT. Yeah, sorry. Wow, why am I thinking that? I'm thinking that's me. That's my middle name. Marc Dumont. You get it. Okay, so you can DrakeMT. You can find me at actually don't follow me on Twitter. I just make terrible jokes all day long, and you've heard them all before. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you, Mathieu Barrette, to Kaden, to Kay, who's always here. Habs rule. You ask, are we here after every game? Every single game. So you have me and you have Andrew. We bring on fun guests all the time on the SDPN podcast network. That is it for all of us tonight. I honestly love you all. I appreciate you all. And we'll see you on Thursday.